Good evening. Welcome to Progressive Soup. My name is David Stevenson. I'll be tonight's host. With us, we have a return visit from great friend of Progressive Soup, Henry Pietras, who recently was in Dresden and Czechoslovakia and Poland, his native Poland. We're going to get around to talking about Poland a little bit, the town where he lived when he was young. But more recently, he went to Greenland, and he's going to talk about Greenland.
Iceland.
Whoa, hold on.
Your kitty cat says someone is trying to call you.
Yeah, no, you're supposed to be... Yeah, I'm going to put a plug in for you. Just wait, just hold on a second. We're trying to figure out something here. Basil said to me, well, first I'm going to say it in cat, then I'm going to translate it. He said, dork. He said, look, dork, you got the wrong shirt on. You got a green shirt on, obviously, because you think it's going to be Greenland. He's talking about Iceland. Henry's here to talk about Iceland. He didn't go to Greenland, he went to Iceland. So you really ought to have your ice shirt on instead of your green shirt. Now, thanks for telling me now. Okay.
Smart cat.
Apparently it's Iceland you went to and not Greenland. What are you going to do? I can't change now. Unless somebody's got a bucket of ice in the back they could throw onto me or something. So, Iceland. Tell us about Iceland.
Iceland is an island about 2/3 of a flight away from Europe. So it's 4 time zones away from us. Europe is 6 time zones away.
Okay, yep.
At least Paris is. But it is about the middle, it's the size of Ohio. It's about the middle of Iceland hits the tip of Greenland, at least on the map. And on the other side, if you drew a straight line, would be...
so we went off by that much then. Okay.
It would hit Norway, the middle of Norway.
Okay. So it's way up north, though.
It's very up north, yeah.
So it's cold.
Well, no, it wasn't. Again, we were there. We returned last week, and temperatures hit 50 degrees. And even at the coldest times during those 5 days, we were pretty much around freezing temperature.
So it's not much colder than here?
Well, it is at times, but in early April or mid-April, it's maybe 10, 20 degrees cooler than here.
Is there a reason for that? Why it's not much colder?
There is. We are actually, they are near the Gulf Stream, and that's water that flows. It's almost like a river within an ocean that goes all the way from the Gulf of Mexico all the way out up towards the North Pole. So it carries temperature. I've been in it around Bermuda, and it's about 10 degrees warmer than the surrounding water once you hit the Gulf Stream. So it acts like a buffer, so it keeps the Iceland warmer than expected. The interesting thing about Iceland is that it's powered by clean energy, and that means it's got a lot of active volcanoes. So there's geothermal. There's a lot. If you drive in the countryside, you see a lot of steam in the area, and that's usually where some kind of spot is where the Earth's crust is a little thinner.
So there's really no place in our country, certainly, except maybe Hawaii, where you would have anything like that.
Well, you have it in I think in Yellowstone. There are.
Oh, the caldera.
Yeah, there are in the Yellowstone. There are some geysers. There's a whole bunch of geysers in Iceland. There's a volcano. There are a whole bunch of active volcanoes. There's quite a bit of earthquake activity. But what's interesting is that all of their power comes, at least for electricity and heating, is from geothermal or hydro, because they have glaciers, and as the water comes down off the mountains, they use that to power turbines. So their electricity is actually quite inexpensive, and as a consequence, I understand there is an aluminum smelting plant because of the low price of electricity, and making aluminum is a very high energy business.
But they can do that because they have this natural runoff. They have hydroelectric power and the geothermal power.
Yeah. There is some. We did see some solar panels, but very few, not on homes. And I understand that there is wind power, but I didn't see any evidence of windmills. What I did see, experience firsthand, was winds that were 60 miles an hour, if not more, and it was interesting walking from place to place in those conditions because you were getting pushed around.
That's steady winds or just gusts?
Gusts and steady, probably around 40 miles an hour, and then gusts up to 60.
So that's not quite gale force, but it's a good portion of the way towards that.
Wind would do great there. Wind power would do great there if if they were willing to spend a little money. They could generate a lot of power via wind power.
So if they take care of a fair amount of their energy through the geothermal, and they had the addition of the wind turbines. What was the country you had mentioned in an earlier show that actually exports power? They take care of all their power.
Well, that's Bhopal.
Bhopal?
Bhopal or Bhopan.
Okay.
It's near Tibet.
Up in the Himalayas.
Yeah, and that's because their power is from glaciers.
Okay, so they have the same thing with the melting water running turbines.
Yeah, and their claim is that they are carbon neutral, and in some case, and actually they are actually carbon negative, in the sense that they do not produce so little carbon dioxide that they actually are, by the terms of the Paris Accord or treaty, or the Paris Agreement on climate change, they are carbon negative, and as far as I know, they're the only one.
So we know that the atmosphere will absorb small amounts of carbon dioxide and neutralize it. So if they're carbon negative, then they're putting out less than the atmosphere can absorb and cleanse itself of.
Yeah, so they're eco-friendly in other words.
And they export some on top of that.
They export the electricity, so so effectively they help other nations nearby.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now, in the case of Iceland, they still use gasoline or diesel to power transport, but their gas is 4 times more expensive than ours. So a gallon of gas.
So there's a good motivation for them to cut back on that if they can do that through through creation of electricity through wind or through geothermal too.
And their goal is to actually, as I understand it, their goal is to put in electric cars, and they believe that they can power all of their electric transport with 12 charging stations all around the island. There's a route, they call it Route 1, that goes all around the
perimeter of it?
The perimeter, close to shore.
Yeah.
Okay, it goes all around the island. Some people take a drive all around the island, but it takes a few days to do because people want to stop, obviously, and visit all these beautiful sites. But it's possible. I did see a whole bunch of electric cars already. I've had some conversations with some people who live there. As I mentioned to you, food is expensive. A sandwich, like a Subway, is about $20 compared to, let's say, $5 to $6 here.
Yeah, so 3 or 4 times the cost for food.
But food is exquisite. It's really, really good food.
Can they produce any food on their own,
of
or
course.
do they have to import everything?
Oh, they produce. They have farms. They have the big thing on the table are things like sheep or lamb and horse, in addition to fish.
Okay, and apparently in France they serve horse too, and when I was there when I was a teenager, we had what they said was, well, after we'd eaten it, of course, was horse meat, and looking back on the meal, I couldn't really tell any difference. It sort of tasted like cow, like beef.
Yeah. The reason we went to Iceland is because my daughter wanted to go to Iceland, and then my wife wanted to go to Iceland, and then she said, "You want to go? You know, it'll be your birthday present." So
wow.
So
nice present.
Yeah. So I have an eye for looking at how people do business and how they do clean energy. So, and of course I'm interested in conversations with people. So we had some interesting conversations with people who live there.
What are the languages? The language or languages?
Well, they have their own language, but they all speak English.
Okay.
And I'm sure most of them speak other languages as well. The population is about 325,000.
Okay.
About 60% of, well, not 60%, but about 60% live near the city of Reykjavik. Reykjavik by itself is 125,000.
That's a good portion of the
So
population.
about Danbury and a half.
Yeah, Danbury's about 80, 90,000. So okay.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a Danbury-sized city, small city by American standards.
Yep. There is no, there are buses, but there is no other public transport. Of course, there are taxis, but there's no, as far as I know, there is no railroad and no, rail-based light rail.
Yeah.
So, what else can I tell you about Iceland? Going back to geothermal, 85% of the country appears to be powered by geothermal in terms of heat for the house. So we had a house. It's basically just a box with a roof over it, with a slanted roof.
Yeah.
There were 3 floors, so we had the basement level. There were at least 3 main rooms, a shower, and a kitchen. And so we had and a hallway. And that was, you just went into a radiator and just turned the knob. And then you would feel all the warm water coming through the radiator.
And this is warm water that's coming directly from under the ground?
Yeah, it's pumped from from the closest geyser or closest hot spring, and the temperature. I checked it. The temperature is anywhere between 300 to 400 degrees coming out of the ground. That's why they can take that superheated steam and run turbines and make electricity out of that.
Wow.
Yeah. The other thing that I heard is, I read, is that the road between Reykjavik and the airport, which is in Keflavik. Keflavik is outside of Reykjavik. It's about 30 miles out.
Oh, so the airport's not actually in the city?
No, there is an airport in the city, but it's what I would call a regional airport. I didn't see any airplanes that I would consider
so small.
They would go,
Transport.
from off the island to like England, for instance. I didn't see any sized airplanes there that way.
So the big airport is about how far outside of Reykjavik?
Well, it's about 50 kilometers, so roughly 30 miles, let's say.
Okay. So it's sort of like...
But the road that goes between the airport and Reykjavik is supposedly heated. Yeah.
I've known
Supposedly.
people, now on a local level, I've known people that talked about, well, why can't snow, why can't we deal with our snow on our roads by running something which creates heat under the road? It's not the snow, but that would be...
Well, supposedly. I'm saying supposedly for a reason.
But obviously that would be, with the cost of energy here, that would be incredibly expensive. Where there, it may not be so outlandish.
Yeah. You do see, what we would see here, these natural gas pipelines.
Yeah.
There's smaller versions of that go along the road. And every once in a while you would see like a zigzag. Okay, instead of having a straight pipe, you have a zigzag. Why is that?
Like a coil.
Yeah. Why?
Like a coil on a heating system.
Yeah, because you have variances in temperature.
Yeah.
And if the pipe just kept pushing against a straight pipe, they would bend.
Yeah.
So you have the zigzags every once in a while to take off the stress and strain of the expansion of the pipe, because even metal expands when heated.
Yeah.
Okay. Bridges have whole small gaps to take out the variances in temperature of
Okay,
hot and
so
cold.
you're our Bill Nye the Science Guy on a local level. So a radiator, not a radiator like we have now in a house that has the hot water heater, but the old style radiators that are kind of like coils. Is that a similar principle?
Sure. It's
Okay.
just surface area.
Okay, so you have more area, more surface area.
Yeah, so
for the
you can
heat-
either
for the heat
take
to-
up or give out heat.
for the heat to emanate off.
Yeah.
So you get more heat out of this than you have out of this.
Well, it's not about heat when you're transmitting the superheated steam. And I understand that the hot water that goes through these pipes, they lose at most about 2 degrees. When it gets from the source to its destination, you only lose like about 2 degrees of
Out of
temperature.
400?
Yeah.
Or 300?
Yeah.
That's a tiny. It's like a tiny loss.
Yeah.
That's what do we have anywhere else that would have that kind of efficiency?
Well, electricity, when we transmit high power electricity over high power lines, there's super high voltage.
So it's only a tiny fraction of a percent?
Well, the higher the voltage, the less resistance.
Okay.
So you can use smaller wires to transmit power.
Okay.
Okay, but the losses in high, over long distances are also about 2%, as I understand it.
Okay.
So that was, but the reason I say, supposedly heated is, one of the guys says it's heated, okay, and Wikipedia says it's heated, but then we're going back to the airport and we see, a truck, okay, throwing out salt.
Oh.
So,
you
so
wonder.
is it or isn't it?
So it might be heated, but just maybe sometimes not quite enough
Yeah.
heat to take care of the road
Well,
entirely?
in this case, it wasn't that, they suspected freezing, but it wasn't, we were still like 3 or 4 degrees above freezing.
Okay.
Going back to the airport. It's a very, very nice highway. The speed limit on any road in Iceland is 90 kilometers, or about 55 miles an hour.
Similar to here.
50 to 60. And every car that I heard, and I specifically say heard, had snow, had studs in the tires.
Yeah.
Meaning it actually had metal spikes in the tires.
Okay.
Okay, and you can hear it, they make a lot of noise. So,
You mentioned the house that you were in, and you mentioned the roof being an angled roof.
yeah.
Like most houses have angled roofs. Were that commercial buildings, residential? Was that everything?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking from that there might be snow, a lot of snow, or no?
We saw the view of Reykjavik. Reykjavik is very close to water. And what you would see is, we were on top of a hill next to a Catholic church. A couple of blocks down there, you were at the harbor.
Yeah.
Okay, but then past that, across the bay, you would see hills or mountains where you would see snow. So, and that snow is what was coming down melted, and that's what they use for power.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked about the roofs is because it seems like you've got this warm flow through the Gulf of Mexico, and at some point that warmth is going to collide with Arctic cold. They're going to collide somewhere, and I think if what happens locally is any indication, usually when you have that collision of warm and cold, that's where you get snow. That's where you have the humidity in the air
Yeah.
congeals.
I don't have the data on what you're talking about. What I do know is that they had, the biggest storm they had was about 1/2 meter, which is pretty much what we had last time.
Okay, yeah,
Okay?
about 15 inches.
Well, 15 inches is
A meter is what, 39 inches.
roughly, yeah.
So, okay, so almost, yeah, so about 1/2 meter, so yeah, 15, 20 inches. So that's a big snowstorm. They don't get huge snowstorms.
Not in Reykjavik, because, Reykjavik is buffered by the warm water nearby.
Okay.
But, at times, they're very close to light 24 hours a day. Okay,
summertime.
like even now, when we were there, sun didn't go, well, it was still light at 10 o'clock at night.
So like May, June, July, August, you're heading in that hump
Yeah.
up and over the hump of 24 hours a day.
But then
light.
you get the other part, which is, almost total darkness.
So
or,
December,
2 or 3
January,
hours.
February, you got
Yeah.
not much of any light.
Yeah.
How do people deal with that?
Well, that's a good question. As I said, 60% of people live near Reykjavik, so there's a lot of culture.
Okay, and you've got a lot of city lights and whatnot that are on constantly.
Yep. Oh yeah, it's yeah. They have lights all over the place, but there is no. Number one, the police do not wear guns. Number two, we hardly saw any police, and interestingly, as far as like littering and so on, I didn't see people doing it at all. Okay, the place was clean.
Self-policing.
Yeah. The one thing that I did read in the local papers was that there were quite a bit of rapes. It looks like last year, or at least whatever the measuring period is for a year, was that the rapes have spiked significantly over previous times. So, I don't know why.
Maybe just a short-term phenomenon, or maybe a long-term trend.
I don't know.
Bad at any rate.
I don't know.
Horrible.
So that's the sad part. I mean, it's a very interesting lifestyle to me, because people are very willing to talk to others. They're first thing that we were at dinner at a pub, and my wife and I were talking, and then this couple, one was a lawyer working for the customs service, and the other was a woman who worked for the liquor commission. Now remember, this is 325,000 people on the island.
Yeah.
And that controlling liquor is one of their sources of revenue. And believe it or not, until roughly 1990, I think it was 1989, you couldn't brew beer on the island because of tax reasons. So anyway, there appears to be quite a bit of drinking, and apparently a lot of drinking happens on Friday evenings. And
I've read that in places like Alaska that have these long periods of darkness, that sort of runs that course there too. There's a lot of alcoholism in Alaska, for instance.
Yeah. Now this couple, one being a lawyer and one being a professional working for the government, they told me they make roughly, translated to roughly $1,500 a month. They have an apartment nearby, about 20 minutes away from the center of town.
Yeah.
And then I asked them, well, what is your cost for electricity and heat? And they told me it was about $30 a month.
Yeah.
Okay, so
because it's.
But as I said, the food is expensive. The land is out of this world. I mean, traveling from the airport to the main part of town, it's like being on Mars, except for the color. It's like grayish, dark grayish.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of, if you see pictures of Mars, it's mostly red.
Kind of reddish dust.
Yeah.
Oxidized iron.
But the scenery is similar to what I've seen picture-wise. But then you also have little islands of some beauty, like waterfalls, glaciers, all kinds of animals and fish and as I said, they do farm, especially along the coast.
How do they farm? Do they farm normally outside?
In some cases, yeah, they do the grain, like wheat and rye.
Okay, so durable crops like wheat.
Okay, but also they do they have a lot of animals, sheep. I'm not sure about cows, but horses and lamb, and then they also do a lot of indoor farming, so they grow, the fresh lettuce and so on.
Is that taking advantage of the warmth that comes out of the ground?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have greenhouses, and of course you have lighting. And for some reason, when we drove by the greenhouses, even during the day, they were lit with lighting.
To give a little extra boost to the plants?
Perhaps. But
do they eat a lot of fish in Iceland?
Yeah, there's a lot of fish. My daughter tried shark, which she said was the most disgusting thing she ever ate.
Been there, done that, she's right.
And they kept it in a jar, because it's, you know, and why? They
Like,
said, well, why?
a pickled sort of?
Yeah, it was pickled shark, and I asked her, well, what? Asked the waitress why, and they said, well, because it stinks. It kind of.
Yeah. After I got divorced, I made that for my kids once. Just, you know, it's going to be a cool dad, and I was going to make them shark so they could experience it. And I'm not going to say any of it. It's just disgusting.
Well, but that's, you know, that's pickled. But I'm sure shark you can also
we bought
have it
we
like
had it fresh.
You know, like
We had it fresh, yeah, but I think I might have thrown some, not pickling solution, but marinated it a tiny bit. And apparently, I guess, not knowing, think all fish absorb anything. Anytime you marinate fish, it soaks it right in.
Yeah.
Very quickly. It's not like marinating beef, where you can soak it for hours and hours.
They did have another delicacy they said it's very popular, and that was dried fish, air-dried fish. And I just thought it tasted like you know, a piece of leather. I mean, it was white and really no taste. It was like, you know, I mean, you know, if you like it.
The best leather you ever had, though, I'll bet.
Yeah. It's white fish.
Okay,
you know,
we're going to continue the discussion. We're going to come back and do a second show and hear a little bit more about Iceland, but also we're going to hear about Henry's native country, Poland, where he actually emigrated from. We've discussed this on previous shows. We're going to go a little bit more detail about that. But we're going to continue the discussion, but I'm David Stevenson, Henry Pietras, Progressive Soup, and continue about the fish, about the shark. We'll hear some more about that shark while we close out.
Well, that's about it. But I would like to, down the line, talk about the warm springs that we went to. It was a bit of a hike, but you know, once you get there, you can, you know, go put your bathing suit on and go swimming in very warm water.
In 300, 400 degree water?
No, it's tempered by the water that's coming off the glacier.
Okay, we're going to come back and we're going to find out how warm that water was that these guys were soaking in. Thanks for joining us. See you tomorrow at noon 30.